The head in the hands as you're starting it says it also. Are you okay there?
Really tired.
Yep. It's been a long few episodes
That's
getting
the
through all
energy
this.
we want into this episode.
Let's
Yeah.
go. No, sorry. I had that Chela Luna song stuck in my head all the way through that intro, so I was just like bopping along to it. Let's go.
I think you should sing it.
No, that's not happening.
I'll get everybody hyped.
Anyway, welcome to the Catching Out podcast and the last recording of the European Dodgeball Championships 2023 that we'll be doing, whichever order you are watching this in. I hope you've enjoyed the episodes. I hope you will enjoy the episodes. Joined here by Zoe and Colin. We definitely all know what we're talking about when it comes to European Dodgeball. Definitely the experts in it.
Nick. That's Nick, rather.
Yeah.
Introducing us to not saying who you are.
Yeah, I'm the
Who
editor.
do you
Haha.
think you are?
I'm the dodgeball collector.
Awful.
Copyright infringement.
On who?
The kick collector.
Aldo, please don't sue me. Look, like the Scotland one's got
He's gonna wait and hear your opinions first, mate.
Look, you got Scotland and GCG. There it is. There. Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, it's all good. So we're on good terms. But yes, welcome to the final one. We are discussing the mixed competition. Or if you are from outside of the UK, I think in Canada and America, some people call it co-ed. So if you are an international listener trying to understand what goes on at European Championships before Worlds next year, this is your chance to find out about what happened in Osijek in Croatia. But let's get straight into it. The mixed pools. So for our audio listeners, in Pool A, we had Croatia winning all their games and topping the group. Italy in second, winning 3 of their games. Ireland third, Switzerland fourth, and Serbia finishing last. In Pool B, Northern Ireland finishing top with an impressive 110 set difference. Spain finishing second, Sweden third, Netherlands fourth, and Norway fifth. In Pool C, we have England topping the group out, and then a 3-way tie again. Pool C loves a 3-way tie, doesn't it? Czechia finishing out on top in that 3-way tie in second place, with France third and Belgium fourth. And then in Pool D, Austria topped it, Scotland second, Hungary third, and Wales fourth. And that's actually incorrect. My graphic is incorrect, so that's fantastic. I will carry on. We'll talk over it. I've got it in the background. We can talk over it. It's fine. England still came top. Czechia did come second. France came third, and Belgium came fourth. However, Czechia won 2 games. France won 1, and Belgium didn't win any games. So, yeah, I think that's the same numbers as from the women's, so I just didn't.
And that's how Pool C ended up being the same across it. Yeah.
That's how it. So Pool C isn't a load of 3-way ties. Anyway, so yeah, quick addendum there. So yeah, Pool A. I mean, out the gates, I think we've got to give credit to Croatia, like straight away.
Wow. Croatia.
Like, damn. That was a really impressive group that they pulled off there to finish top against some very experienced sides in mixed.
I was going to say, they really succeeded in breaking both mine and Colm's hearts. Like, one of us was bound to be happy if at least Ireland... Croatia had to go and win the whole pool, and that means Italy comes second.
I'm the least heartbroken out of us two.
Yeah.
We'll get onto that in a bit. No, from what I've seen, they played very well. I'll be honest, I was very shocked at how well they played. As we said before, the Italians usually are a very solid group. Might have taken the hit by having 2 separate squads going into this. I don't really know in hindsight if mixing it up would have improved the results any better. Still done well to come second in the group though. with a very healthy score difference as well, even higher than Croatia's. But yeah, they were definitely the best two teams in that group, and I think it was a fair reflection in the end, the order.
Yeah, apparently all my numbers are completely wrong here. Like, because Tornify says it's completely different, so I don't actually know what happened there.
So just ignore Nick.
Yeah, just ignore the graphic if you're watching this.
We'll do that anyway.
Yeah, just go listen to this one on Spotify. It'd be much better for you.
Yeah, I think Italy not entering a sort of, as it were, their like best mixed team makes sense for them, seeing as they don't really play mixed that much in Italy. And we knew that going into the competition that Italy was going to do that. We knew that Switzerland was also going to do that. So it's somewhat surprising to see like Croatia just storm into the front. At the same time, out of all of the groups, I think it's the one that was the most likely to have something like that happen, because it's not the strongest teams possible from some of those nations, and those nations are the ones that have the higher seedings, as it were. And then you've got Serbia that are also wild cards. So maybe Serbia could have shown up with some surprising outcomes as well, but just didn't. But yeah, it's fair play to Croatia. Like it's an impressive thing to capitalize on to the extent that they did. And they played some very good matches. I mean, it wasn't even close. Like Croatia beat Switzerland 24-6. They beat Ireland 18-14, which was a much closer match. I'd imagine that probably came down to the last set or so. But that's not them like just managing to get by a single set one in the last minute in all of their matches. They did actually fully impose themselves in a lot of these matches, and fair play to them. It wasn't what was expected, but that's because you don't really know what to expect in these kinds of matchups. But if it's a team that hasn't really played that much before, like Croatia, then they can really show up with anything, and that's what they did. They put their best foot forward. They put their best players in that team, and it paid off as a gamble for them.
I think it was a really good team. Like, really impressive. Like, definitely pulled the best players from their men's and women's, and showed some real talent there. It was very impressive considering how they did in the previous Euros.
It's one of the things I really like. I think it's one of the things I really like about mixed as a format, especially in international settings, is that for a developing nation, it's quite frequent that you end up with a situation that has like 2 or 3 really good players in their men's squad and 2 or 3 really good players in their women's squad. Like you see that time and time again. And the great thing about mix is that then you get to have 6 very good players on court because you've got the best players from one side and the best players from the other. And so you end up, it feels as if like developing, like nations that are developing their dodgeball side can like join into the pack much quicker in mixed than they do in other forms. They can't necessarily, peak out of the pack in the same way that Croatia's done here. Like that's pretty impressive from them. But they can definitely like hold their own in a way that sometimes it takes a few more years to see in the men's and women's sides. So I wouldn't be surprised if Croatia, in a few years' time, their men's and women's might do particularly impressively as well. But it's not surprising that mixed is the form that they happen to do better in, considering they've got just a couple star players in each side that then come together to make a particularly impressive mixed side.
Yeah, no, it's not surprising, but yeah, I think what surprised me was just how well they formed. Like Italy definitely brought through like a development squad with a lot of new players coming through, some very talented players. I think like their men's and women's future is looking very bright, but there was definitely some, I guess, some team bonding issues in the sense that there was some decision making that was a bit questionable at times. A lot of solo play that definitely hindered them, and I think that's what really stood out about how Croatia played, is that jumping up that high from where they were before is ridiculous. Like, I cannot be understated how ridiculous that is, that jump that they made, because that's not just getting better with individuals getting very, very talented. It's individuals and the team playing really well and knowing how to play well. And just it was like, we need to sing their praises while we can, because it's fully deserved.
And kind of using Zoe's point during the preview episode, I was talking about how Ireland have the players to put together a really strong mixed team. And at times that really showed. And I think especially the wing play, I thought Meg and Dave Cardoso on the left wing, especially, both had blinders in a lot of big sets in those games. And I thought the experience really showed in that squad of how to adapt your game to the situation you're in. And that's how they clawed through the game against Switzerland, because I think that was one set. And we only got beat by Croatia by 2 sets. And I think the Italy game, another a 1-set loss for Ireland. Like, this could have been a completely different group stage for Ireland, potentially finishing top of the group with 1 or 2 sets going their way. You know, like the proof what I was talking about, and that if you put your best, most experienced players together in a squad and have them tactically sound, it can go far. Like that was the kind of Ireland that I was expecting and hoping to turn up. They just got very unlucky, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. But it was a much better Ireland, like, than the other teams there, the men's and the women's. It was a much more cohesive unit throughout.
Oh, 100%. The experience really, really showed. And I think the game management and the substitutions were a lot smarter compared to some of the ones that were made in the men and women's as well. They really tried to adapt the game in their favour, which they have the potential to do. And it's why I was really hoping that Ireland would focus mostly on mixed in terms of the player selection. Because I think that's where they're going to thrive. As always said, you know, if you have 3 or 4 good quality experienced players for the men and 3 or 4 for the women, like, and if you can have them be in this cohesive unit, which a lot of them will have played together for a lot of years, like Dave and Meg and Garv in particular have been around for a number of years. And it really showed whenever they were working side by side. And if you can have a few more players coming through in the next couple of years, because there's talented individuals in both the men and women's squad in Ireland. It's just about making it a cohesive unit and playing a very solid tactical game. That's the big thing that's missing right now is working on that. Several like styles of play now. But I'm very excited to see how they do in the future tournaments coming up in the next few months.
For sure. Yeah,
I'm gonna beat Switzerland, so Zoe was unhappy, and that made me happy.
To be clear, she didn't play in that team. You know.
Still her team, and she still lost.
Fair.
Love you.
He didn't play for Ireland either, did he? So.
What? It's the first I've heard.
Wow.
If it was the other way about it, I wouldn't hear the end of it.
Yeah, it's true. Pool B. So Northern Ireland at the top. Okay, it wasn't 110. It was 100.
I don't know where you got that figure from.
I have no idea. I don't know where any of like half these numbers have come from. Like everything is not just wrong, but incredibly wrong. The only thing that is right is the positionings. So all the positionings are correct. But yeah. Northern Ireland at the top, they had a set difference of 74. Spain second was set difference 6. Sweden third, set difference of 24. Netherlands -6 and Norway -98. But yeah.
I mean, like the set difference doesn't matter that much.
No, just
and that's what you got right. So
yeah,
it's
Northern Ireland doing Northern Ireland things.
Northern Ireland doing Northern Ireland things. Spain definitely aren't strong, and not what we expected in a group with Sweden and Netherlands. I think the Netherlands we would have expected to do a lot better than that. Sweden we would have absolutely expected to do a lot better than that. But Spain did what we just said Croatia did, where you just put your best players in your mixed squad and you put everything into the mixed team, and it just makes a big difference. Like there were certain players that are just standout players that you would have expected to see potentially even both in men's and mixed, and then they just didn't. They were just in mixed. I think that's a really bold decision. It's one thing to like play that style of dodgeball where you have your best players playing in your men's and your mixed, and so you don't have like a development mixed squad. You've just got everyone playing a lot of game time. It's a very bold decision to take your best players and not have them play in the men's category or the women's category at all, and it definitely paid off for Spain. And you could tell how much it meant to them. think that was the thing that always stood out to me watching the Spanish matches was just the way that they celebrated every single one of their games. Even when they lost, they were still like celebrating the fact that they didn't do as badly as they thought they would, and like that every time they celebrated, they just had their whole heart in that mixed squad. It was really, really cool to watch. Beat the Netherlands 17-13, and then where's the other one? Spain
The speaker was hella annoying, not gonna lie.
I did tell them to stop it several times, but I'm not going to shout out every single nation that I told to shut up.
other than that, it was great seeing them support everyone. But yeah, their mix was.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And then 18-14 against Sweden as well. So they beat the Netherlands and Sweden by 2 sets in both their games. So that's just really good to see. It's just it's not what we would have predicted, and it's a gamble that paid off for Spain. And it's not as if Sweden had like a particularly weak team. It's not as if the Netherlands had a particularly weak team. This is just Spain having the strongest team they possibly could have in their mix. And just, part of me wonders if they looked at the way that the pools have been drawn and saw an opportunity and just fully pushed into that opportunity, because this was definitely their chance to do some damage, and it felt like they took that chance with both hands. It's massive from them.
Maybe, but like even if they got put in Pool A, like that would have been a massive opportunity. Like,
That would have been incredible. Yeah.
like they Sweden and Netherlands are some, especially the Swedish mixed team, a solid team. Like really, really good.
Very.
To again, singing Croatia's praises, sing Spain's praises for a second. 2 years ago, they only had 2 Euros ago, they only had a mixed team, and they were still learning what a calling system was. To then come away and come second in the group and beat like established teams like Sweden, Netherlands, ridiculous. The absolute buy-in from the Spanish team and the federation to be like, okay, not only are we going to learn how to play dodgeball, we're going to learn how to be really good at it. Hell yeah, I absolutely here for it. Absolutely love it. And yeah, just to see them get really hyped for it, and all the support they had, by all their players, like the ball retrievers were players from the mixed and men's. So for mixed were like the men's and women's players, and vice versa for women's. And massive shout out to their president, who it was their birthday while they was there as well. So really fantastic for them as well. So it was really great, a really great Euros all around for them, from what I understand. Shame Iceman couldn't be there for the end to receive his award, because he was too busy with other stuff in other countries, being busy sporting elsewhere, I believe, is what I understand. But really impressive stuff from Spain. Again, something that can't be underappreciated. Pool C. England topping it. Not really a surprise for anyone, I don't think. I was a little surprised to see Czechia go above France, until I realised that France had also put out a development squad, and I was not that surprised.
Euros development squads are mixed this time around. It's an interesting thing that's kind of become more normal.
Ireland have been doing it for a long time. Whenever I made my debut in Glasgow.
I guess it's something that, like, when we haven't had a regional competition in a while.
You have to do it at some point, though. Yeah.
Exactly. It's well done to Czechia for beating France. Do we remember where they came in the tables, Czechia?
Wait, was it
fifth?
Was it fifth?
Yeah, I think it might have been fifth. It might well have been.
I love Nick was genuinely trying to remember there.
Oh, you think I was genuinely trying to remember? Yeah, sure.
Read it.
How many times?
No way you're acting. No way you're acting that good.
How many times have I brought up the fact that Czechia finished fifth in the previous 6 podcasts?
It's always brought it up.
No, not always. Anyway, moving on.
Someone did edit.
Someone do a counter.
England topping the group, not surprising. Czechia coming second, not surprising. France coming third, not surprising. And Belgium coming fourth, not surprising. Well done, guys. Great summary.
Yeah, I think this might actually be one that we... Well, no, I don't think we did predict it correctly, because I think we predicted France, but
I think it's I hate to say this because it's quite a harsh criticism to give on any group, but if you had to say one group in Euros was the most boring, Mixed Pool C is probably the most boring. There are no close matches really here. The closest match you get point difference wise is England versus Czechia, which is a 2012 scoreline, and that's the closest. So it's not a particularly close group. At the end of the day, it sort of seems as if everybody got the result that they should have got. It's not surprising. No upsets happened here. I think there were more interesting games that happened then when you split off the top two into the quarterfinals and the bottom two go off into their positionals. That creates a lot more interesting games. But this is kind of this is a group stage that sort of felt like I don't know, one from a previous edition of Euros where there wasn't as much chaotic stuff happening and actually things just happened the way you'd expect them to. So fair play to everyone for getting the results that they deserved, but it's quite hard to say anything about it, isn't it?
Yeah, there's not much not much to go into. So on to Pool D then. Austria topping the
Feels
group.
like when we cover Men's Super League, we're all knackered and we're like, well, there's nothing to say there. Moving on.
Oh yeah, Men's Super League, fantastic. Looking forward to that one.
I always talk about stuff.
Yeah, you and only you.
Group D.
Yeah, Group D. So this one, I will just correct some things. So Austria came top, and then it was a three-way tie between Scotland, Hungary, and Wales, with Scotland winning out on that one. So Austria came top, Scotland second, Hungary third, and Wales fourth. I think the order it went is Hungary beat Wales, Wales beat Scotland, Scotland beat Hungary. Again, Wales just really don't like playing Hungary, it seems. Hungary played really well. I can't lie in that mixed game. It was a very spicy game, having been there. It was, I think, it only took to the second set for the referees to call everyone in, not just a few players and captains, literally the entire bench and all players that were playing, all coaches, everything, in a big huddle and say, cut it out, let's play a game, stop pointing, let's stop arguing, let's go on with the game. Which, fair play to the ref for actually taking control of that, because that is a game that, given...
That could have spiraled out of control, absolutely.
Yeah, that could very much have spiraled out of control. So, as much as referees do get, shots fired at them occasionally, I need to give credit for how well they managed that situation, and how they managed the game. Because they are only human after all, and they did a really good job. So, yes, big round of applause for the referees. So, but yeah, I don't really have much to say about the Hungary game against Wales, because I think Hungary played pretty damn well and deserved the win. I think the interesting one is the Wales-Scotland game, because that was kind of crazy to watch.
Yes.
And I can't remember if we talked about it in the men's game, because I think the men's also played Scotland as well at some point. In Wales, Scotland played, I think, in the men's as well. I can't remember. But I think we discussed, Wales were up for that game against Scotland. They wanted that win. And it wasn't just a case of they wanted it because they needed it. They wanted it. They really wanted to beat Scotland. They had eyed up Scotland. They were the team that they wanted to beat. And they fully went for it. And to be fair, they got the win. Scotland just didn't really rise to the occasion, but it didn't really matter because Scotland came out on top anyway. But
that's the thing. Ultimately, they didn't rise to the occasion there, but they rose to the occasion in the matches where it ultimately was the matches that mattered more. So fair play to Scotland. And Scotland, it's a very close match. It's a 14-16 scoreline. So as far as losses go, there's literally no closer match. But it's yeah, interesting that they lost that. I think that Scotland mixed team was so interesting to watch. I thought they were just a really, really strong unit in pretty much every match other than that Wales match. The Wales match, I wonder if it's just an element of you're playing against a team that just knows you very well. And then, the players have all played each other for ages. A lot of them play in the same leagues. And it's just kind of it makes an interesting match when you've got players that know each other that well. Whereas normally at Euros, you don't have that level of knowledge about your opponents. It's not the same as National League. But yeah, Scotland losing by only 2 sets against Austria is pretty damn impressive considering the quality of that Austrian mixed team. And then, yeah, beating Hungary quite comfortably, which is not something that Scotland could do as easily last year, is quite good for them as well. So fair play to Scotland. They did very well. Fair play to Hungary for managing to get a win over Wales. That's kind of what I was saying in the women's episode, where it just feels as if sometimes Wales is a bit too variable in their results, and it's tricky to watch because you know that they could get a really impressive. They could have easily slotted into second in this group, and it just sort of feels as if sometimes there's a little bit too much individualism or chaos or something like that that's happening on that team that makes it hard to watch because you know that it's not necessarily that they deserve to be higher, but they could be higher. They could. Yeah, it's within grasp. It's so close to their grasp, and it just feels as if something's not quite clicked sometimes. And when it does click, then it's great, but it doesn't feel as if they know how to make it click. It doesn't seem like they're aware of what the difference is between when they lose and when they win. And I couldn't tell you right now because I haven't watched back all their games, but I'd imagine you could work it out pretty easily. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what some of their opposition have done.
Yeah, I think what we talked about before was like the energy of that team. Like Wales are a very like high and low type team. They ride the highs and boy do they sink to their lows. When things are bad, which, is a blessing and a curse. It means that you get the games where they're really good against Scotland. Like, even against Austria, if I remember correctly, was it this game where Wales against Austria was really close at half-time, but then Austria just blew away? Like, it was one of the first games of the tournament. And, basically Wales really took it to Austria to begin with. I think they were down like 8-6, 8-4 at half-time. But then, Austria just ran away with it, as Austria do. But it's an interesting one, Wales. But fair play to Scotland. It'll be interesting to see how long this lasts with Scotland as well, because we know their women's have having a bit of a reform. Wonder how long the Scotland mixed team can hold out for.
That's what we were just saying before. As long as you've got 3 or 4 good players, then you're safe and sound in mixed. And I think Scotland do have 3 or 4 very good players in their women's team.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the issue in their women's team. I think the issue is that there's a bit of a drop, and then there's just so many new players, and it's just a matter of getting the hang of each other. And it just didn't completely stall their development, but it slowed it down compared to other teams.
Yep. And just a shout out again to Serbia and Norway. First time in the competition. Serbia especially, there were some players that had never played dodgeball before that or played for 2 weeks that were playing. And by the end of it, you definitely saw, especially on the women's side, there were two of their women's players that definitely picked up some of the tactics pretty quickly, and were very aware of how they were meant to be covering players, and especially some of their catching was, as you do when you're inexperienced, you just end up with some some catches that you make that you should have had no right to get, but you just make them because you don't know any better. You don't know to leave them. So. Some really impressive play there. So definitely some hope for Serbia to come, and we'll be looking forward to see what happens there. And same with Norway. We spoke about the men's and women's before, but definitely an organised group of people and definitely an organised team. We'll see how they continue to grow and see what the NECs hold. But any other thoughts before we go on to the playoffs?
No, covered it all.
So. Mixed prediction results. So again, for our audio listeners, what you'll hear is we'll break down each quarter final. But for our video listeners or watchers, you can see that we've broken down which teams were we predicted to finish in the group, and then what quarter final they will be in, and then who won out of it. So, for example, the first quarter final. We all predicted Italy to finish top of Group A, and we were wrong. We all predicted Sweden to finish second in Group B, and we were all wrong.
We're so this.
And Croatia and Sweden, Croatia and Sweden were the ones that finished top of A and second in B. Sweden, Spain. Yeah, sorry. It's harder to get a column. You got this. This ended up being a really interesting one because these were two teams that I guess we didn't expect to necessarily do as well as they did, and they both put out their really strong teams, and here we are. you know,
was an
Spain
interesting
winning it.
You looked at that quarterfinal, and it was on paper one of the more interesting quarterfinals. I'd say like the England Scotland game and the Spain Croatia game were the two quarterfinals I was most excited about in this. But equally, I had this. I remember like I was looking at. It, I was like, it's a very weird sensation looking at it because all of the other quarterfinals, you're like, yes, these are the teams we expect to see in the quarterfinals, and one of these will progress to the semifinals, and that seems normal and standard. You looked at Croatia versus Spain, and you're staring at that match going, one of those teams is guaranteed to come fourth at worst. That's an insane thought to have looking at that when you're looking at all the other things, right? And so it's a fantastic match in itself, and I'm very glad that they were paired off against each other because it made for a really close match, a really interesting match to watch. But it was just this bizarre little thing in your mind where you're just like, oh my god, one of these teams has to come fourth at worst. And that's essentially what they're playing for. Is I don't think either team was expecting to come third or first or second, but they're playing for the chance to get that insanely good position compared to where they've ever come before. And what a great course final that was to set up. Like that's such a close fought match between them.
And what a great third, fourth playoff it ended up being as well. Like,
yeah,
they fully earned their position there. Like Spain really showed their ability and how much they'd taken everyone by surprise. And I don't think it was people definitely underestimated them at all. They were just good. They were a solid team, and they were playing really well. So yeah, fully deserved Spain and really, really well played. I don't really have any highlights to show from that game because it was just, I think Spain were just very tactically sound, very good in their decision making, and they've also got some star players that can do outrageously crazy catches and dodges, which is just really helps.
They've just put a lot of effort into their mixed side over the last few years. Like I said before, is there a chance that maybe they decided to put all their best players into mix when they saw the draw? Yeah, but I think when you look at the development they've had as a team, if you look at the way that they perform, because they send the national team to the Paris Open each year, right? The UD Open. So like that's an interesting thing in itself to send a national team to a club open. There's no rules against it. But that's a really interesting insight that you get to have because you get to see the mixed Spanish team ahead of time. And the way that they've developed in that competition has been really, really impressive over time. Like the first time they showed up there, you could honestly just look at it and be like, the men are good, the women would be good if they were in a women's game, but no one's giving them any, no one's kind of backing them up. Their men kind of treated them as if they weren't there. And that's always a sign of a pretty poor mixed team is when the women are just sort of placeholders, and once all the men are out, then the mixed team is screwed, essentially. And that's where Spain started. And within a year of being in that position, they got to the point where they were just this very, very unified squad where everyone was doing something, and it didn't feel as if anyone was just standing around waiting to be told what to do. Like, they all know why they're there. They all have a purpose, and it doesn't matter that they're a man or a woman on court. They're there to play dodgeball, and that's the best way of playing mixed. That's the most interesting way of playing mixed. So kudos to them for kind of noticing that difference in their playing style and for practicing it. Like that's the thing, they get to practice that mixed team. I think mixed teams get treated as if they're like an afterthought in some nations, and so for them to actually take the effort to send their mixed team to, among other teams, to the sort of club opens is a really good sign because that means they're not just focusing on sending their men there and their women there. They're also like, okay, the mixed are important. Let's train the mixed. So it's a huge development step for them, and it's massively earned.
Yeah, so Hungary also go to, as the Budapest Pirates, they go to quite a few of these opens as well. So I think, there are other teams that are learning from this.
Is the thing.
Pardon?
It's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
So, but I did have a point about Spain. Oh yeah, so I was going to say that the use of the women in their team, it seemed a bit different to how I guess say the British teams use women in the team, where it's very much more, everyone does have a role and they do have a part to play. But I'd say in English teams or British teams, it's a bit more you're relied on for catching and bringing players back in. And these players are incredibly good catchers, and that's why they're there. But maybe less so for using their arms, and the men are heavy throwers. It's the same with like Austria. Austria still use their men quite a lot with their throws, but they're more willing to interchange with other women because their women's throws are also ridiculously insane. And basically, it's when you look at Austria, they quite often have a man or a woman as one of the last players, because it doesn't matter who you get out, because they are that good all the way around that it's really difficult to say, oh, we should target this first person first and get easy outs or whatever. Whereas usually the women are end up being last in. With the Austrians, it's not like that. With this, Spanish were definitely using their women a lot more as like sort of countering and cover players. They were very much more, I'd almost say, the tactical mind of the team. They were the ones that were really watching over what was going on, who needed support on the wings, who was staying up a little bit too long up court and needed the cover, and also telling other men to pick up the ball and get their arse up court and get a player, because they're either putting pressure on and they need to get rid of the pressure and release the ball quickly. And they did that a few times where they were just releasing a ball really quickly because they saw they were under pressure and getting a hit off it. And it was really good to see. And it was, I'd say, quite a unique way of seeing mixed play, but it worked damn well. Good to see that, like you say, that they're fully integrating their entire team to be fully used. And it was good to see, the entire club behind it. On to the next one.
Let's go.
Yeah, so we all predicted England to top Group C, and I got it wrong. I said Wales were going to go second in Group D, but Scotland came second.
What was the first part of that sentence again? Repeat that last.
You want to be quiet there, Nick? I picked it up.
I might got it wrong! Oh, God, I felt a bit ill saying that. In my defence, Wales still beat Scotland. But yeah, no, Scotland got through. And oh my God, what a mixed game this was.
Spicy.
Sudden
How much
death.
are we allowed to talk about?
All of it, right?
I can
independent.
I can do it. Yeah.
Independent
You guys.
media. Context to this went to sudden death, which I did wonder, how do we record sudden death matches? Because in penalties you say the score was 3-3, and then you
probably put an asterisk beside it.
How do you show? This was a overtime set that then went into sudden death. I don't know, but it did go to sudden death.
I would have an OT in the top right, and then if it was a sudden death, then an asterisk beside the OT.
You should have a little bracket of the player who got the final hit or catch.
Just a little face.
just a little face
on the middle of the flag.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Of course, Scotland played so well in that game.
Incredibly well.
Amazing.
I think
they did really, really well.
Before going on to any of the analysis of how Scotland did after this game, it's worth noting that some of their players were quite injured after this game and took it a lot easier and rested themselves as a result. So this was really kind of the pinnacle of where Scotland got to, and then sort of the wears and tears of Euros got to them. But my God, what a high it was.
I think tactically, they hit the nail on the head for the majority of that game, and it was very much essentially 6 1v1 battles that was going on in each set. It was really entertaining to watch. From the England side in particular, Steve had an incredible game. That man could not miss. I loved how in the England games, whenever Steve made a hit, and you could hear the commentators had to clarify that nobody was booing. It was it was a Steve chant. That was incredible. Steve, from the women, I really want to shout out. I gave them a shout out in the women's. I'm giving them a shout out here. Abby and Alice were phenomenal in this game in particular. It got to a point where Scotland started trying to target them, and they were just soaking up all the pressure, for never going out for silly mistakes or poor dodging, and that helped England a lot because they needed the ball possession. Because whenever Scotland was taking control of the ball possession, they were doing really well with it, and they were just the targeting was really, really smart for the majority of that game from the Scotland side. and that played a big part. Then you had England, who, you know, Tamas was unhittable, and the rest of the squad were legitimately unhittable. And
I've never seen a video like spread as quickly as that video did. And if you don't,
if only that was the only one of Tamas that got sent around, wasn't even his only strike.
Yeah.
But anyway, I honestly devastated for Scotland that was what the difference maker was in the end, really. Especially that was in the last set, right? Or was it that second last set?
Yeah, no, it was the last set.
Last set. Yeah, that's, you hate to see it. It was genuinely heartbreaking. You know, you can say it was a poor refereeing decision, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, there's no way he couldn't have felt that. But you know, I'll let.
But yeah, I think there's too many things for a referee to see in that, because it was a pre-throw, I believe.
It's crazy. They
did
the smart thing, because they were discussing about. I think it was Lauren threw a late ball at Cam, I think it was, and that was what the referees initially was called in for, was to decide whether she threw too late to be called out, and they made arguably the right decision in calling her out. And then Tamas just stayed on court, and I was just sat there going, "What have I just seen?" It was insane.
I'll be honest, because being there, the absolute crowd that game drew was awesome, because it was so far behind everyone else and holding up the schedule. Just watching it from a spectator point of view, I didn't see it until that video was shown around. So, in person, I can totally forgive the referees, because there's so much going on.
Oh yeah, they definitely, there was other stuff to look at.
Especially I don't think anyone blaming referees here, Nick.
No. But especially the flurry in that game, the amount of pre-throws both teams were throwing at each other, which meant that there were multiple balls in the air at the time and going in different directions, just made it so hard to track. But yeah, it was I
also don't want that moment to take away from the fact that the rest of the England squad and all of the Scotland squad were absolutely incredible in that game. That shows you what mix can do whenever you have two high quality teams going at each other. It was incredible watch.
Really good game.
And if you want to try and teach people how they should be playing mixed and the different roles that the men and women play throughout it, that and the finals are the two matches that you could learn a lot from.
Yeah, the final and the third-fourth playoff, I would say as well.
I haven't seen that, so
just because to see how Spain played, I think we'll get onto that one later, but yeah. I'd also recommend that one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, really tough game. The only real close game in the quarterfinals, and my God, was it close. So yeah, definitely recommend, add that to your shopping list of dodgeball matches to watch. The England-Scotland quarterfinal in the mixed, very, very good game.
Yeah, it's not like watch lists exist or anything, that you could call it.
Mate, I'm not that tech savvy. I just would click the record button every so often. Not even reliably.
I was going to say, I wouldn't claim that you hit the record button today, Nate.
Anyway, moving on to the next quarterfinal, the one which none of us could see what was happening in Group A, because, like you say, Croatia screwed everyone over. Zoe and I predicted Switzerland to go through in second, and Colin predicted Ireland, and we were all wrong because Italy was second place.
I was closer.
Yeah, okay.
I call a flag.
Listen, I finished bottom of the predictions. I need to cling on to everything. I can't. Okay, give me this one.
You can get the well done for being nearly relevant award for this one. And then all of us saw Northern Ireland finishing top of Group B. But then Italy v Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, dealt with Italy quite handily, which did surprise me, because even though on paper, having seen the two teams, I don't think Northern Ireland were a million miles ahead of Italy. with some of the talent Italy had. It was just a case Northern Ireland were a better unit and they were just a better team overall, I think, and that really showed in this game, which is kind of disappointing for Italy because they definitely had the talent to have this game be a lot closer than it was.
Yeah, that's fair. But I would say that overall I would have put NI comfortably ahead of Italy, but I wouldn't have seen them winning by 20 points.
Yeah. That's yes.
I'd say that like pound for pound, the Northern Ireland players are better players than that Italian squad,
and a lot more disciplined.
Yes,
a lot more disciplined. A lot of experience in that team, a lot of very good dodgeballs, but also very good teamwork in that team. So, like, in pretty much every metric, I would have said that Northern Ireland were better. I wouldn't say that they were 24-4 better. So that's quite an impressive score for them.
Where I think NI excel in the mixed area compared to other, England would be the main comparison, is that you can tell a lot of their women playing alongside the men in the men's league. And it really shows, and they're not afraid to step up and do similar roles to a lot of the men that you would expect from in other nations. It's definitely a really good weapon to have in their arsenal going into games. It's the reason why they do so well against the bigger nations as well.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really have much else to. Yeah, Czechia against Austria, because all of us thought France were going to get through, and boy, were we wrong. So yeah, that pesky fifth place team coming through into another quarterfinals and playing off against Austria. Yeah, Austria doing Austria things.
Say on that one, is there?
Yeah, it's
really
so difficult because they are such a good team, Austria. Yeah, I'm kind of speechless on that. I don't really have much to say. It is a tough one. There is quite a gulf.
Yeah, it was just a go. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what Czechia do after their quarterfinals in each of the groups is much more interesting than their quarterfinals themselves. Like, this is... They had a hard draw when it came to what they had in the quarterfinals, and there's an argument that can be made that at least in one of the groups they should have been able to get out of the quarterfinals if they just had a better draw, but they don't. So this is what they end up with, and they made the best out of a bad situation. You literally cannot do better than fifth if you fail your quarterfinal. So they quite literally did the best they could out of the situation they had in all those groups, and that tells you something about how good that Czech team is. You know, that's the best loser out of those quarterfinalists. So that's a pretty impressive thing to say. But at the same time, the best loser of the quarterfinals is losing by a pretty substantial margin to Austria. That's what happens when you end up against the champions. Like it just sucks. That's all you can get. That's all that happens.
I think it shows how difficult mixed is to predict because of how different nations treat mixed. Like it's kind of you know, it's where we're at in dodgeball throughout Europe at the moment, where it really depends on who you've got available in your team and how or in your nation and how you want to play it. Do you want to have the best players in both? Do you want to have a certain squad for each? You know, that different teams and nations do it differently. You know, we were the worst at predicting it mixed out of the 3 rounds. You know, I didn't even get over 50%. A coin had better luck than I did at predicting. So, you know, that kind of shows you how bad, you know, how difficult it is. And, yeah, the gulf between, I say, England and Austria and the rest is quite large. Although Northern Ireland really were close in that semi-final against Austria. And we thought that Northern Ireland were going to do better. It was a good game, but man, Austria, they handled them pretty well.
I do think NI had their chances that they didn't take in a couple of the sets. I think there was 2 or 3 where they were semi comfortably up and kind of threw it away. It didn't click as it usually does for them in that game. Again, you could also say it comes down to Austria's play style. Like it's very difficult to play that really like steady game whenever you're coming against a very aggressive team. That's where you just have to, show your experience and hold your own on court. And Austria just showed they're extremely good team, and they're always going to be very, very tough to beat.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then the other semi-final was England-Spain. Yeah, did you have anything to say about that, Zoe? That semi-final?
Yeah, I'd say that was pretty much expected. I'd say I expected it.
Yeah, I didn't expect it, but yeah, Northern Ireland was so good last year. I think that's the thing, is they played so well, and I didn't expect the Austrian men to do as well as they did in the mixed. Because I think the women would be fine, but it was just the men going up against the men of Northern Ireland are incredible. Like the Northern Irish men are just out of this world, crazy good. So I wasn't expecting them to be able to do it as well. But I think the overall team mechanics of Austria just really picked Northern Ireland apart and picked on their weak points. And you said, when Northern Ireland made a mistake, they made a mistake and they couldn't capitalise where an Austria did. Just clinical Austria. But the other semi-final, Spain v England. I don't think anyone could have seen that one coming. This was almost like directly after, I think it was very shortly after the England-Scotland semi-final, quarter-final. It felt I think it was only 2 or 3 games after. It was very quick. On quarter 4, I didn't get to see this because I was watching the Austria Northern Ireland game, but looks like England kind of handled it. Definitely didn't underestimate Spain and just properly, we've got a semi-final to win. Yeah. Rightly so.
As you should.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a massive credit to Spain that England acted that way, because it shows that that's they'd surprised so many people and took advantage of it. But when it came to it, they the best teams had to put out their best squad to deal with them.
Yeah, no, exactly. They're treated like a proper competitor, which is what they are. They're in the semi-final, so fair dues.
Yeah. You can tell we're getting tired. It's so tired at half 10. No, by no means the latest we've ever recorded an episode, but so much content. On to the final then, because I'm sure this will pick up the energies, because there's a lot to talk about in this game. The England-Austria mixed final, and how that went down into a sudden death. Overtime set, then sudden death. That was kind of ridiculous. Again, Alice to thank for England even being in the overtime set, because I'm pretty sure it was an Alice catch which brought them back level to to make an overtime set possible. And then that was one of the cagiest overtime sets I've seen, to be honest. It was so there were quite a few outs, because it ended up being a when it came to sudden death, it was a 2v2. I can't remember if it was Alice and Charlotte for England, Charlotte Josiah, and who was in for Austria?
And,
was it Lightier?
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. I don't think it wasn't. It was. Wasn't it Nate? Was it Max?
I can't for the life of me. I know his face, but I don't know his name.
I'm picturing it in my mind. I can't read what the back of his shirt says. That's so bad. Are you pulling up the game?
I am. I'm pulling up the game right now.
We can cut this bit.
And after that amazing edit, after we just figure out what else was going on. So the overtime set, it was it was Abby Gower, Alice Bonsignori, and Charlotte Josiah that were left for England, and then Decca.
Alice and Charlotte.
Yeah, that's what I said, didn't I?
You said
it was a 3v2.
Yeah, 3.
So England had 3.
3v2.
Oh, right.
And against...
He's doing right before the sudden death.
Yeah.
Right,
What caused this to... Yeah, so... cool, you were having panicking there. I was like, am I really... Yeah. So yeah, then it was Decker and Grill for Austria that were left. Decker gets a hit on Abby just before time goes, and then it goes straight into sudden death. Yeah, and then overtime set. Very.
It's amazing to see a final come down to a sudden death. Like that's just incredible. That's definitely the first time that's happened. Like that's amazing. We've had overtime sets before. We had that last year, but an actual sudden death is like, whew.
Yeah,
like it's proper squeaky bum time. Like,
but it is. But it's also like it's ridiculously hard to process what's just happened. Like you go from you just pulled yourself back into the match because you managed to draw up. Okay, overtime set. You don't have any time to prepare yourself because it's straight into overtime set. You maybe get a little brief from the referees to say this is what is happening and this is how it will play. Because as soon as you're into overtime set and the 3 minutes expire, if the teams are even, it immediately goes to sudden death. There is no right, teams line up, teams ready or anything after that. You've got to immediately go from, okay, we're playing to win this set to, we need to hit someone and not get hit. Like, it's such a change of mentality in such a short space of time. Like, it was like, from an audience perspective being there, like, understanding what was going on, it was really, like, kind of like, you only just had enough time to process, oh my god, okay, right, now we're playing for sudden death. This is what's happening. This is why they're taking time. I can't imagine what it would have been like on the court to be like, oh god, gold medal on the line here, to be the best in Europe. We've just 2v2. We need to get hit.
It's so rare. I've only ever personally played in one sudden death, and it was in my first year of dodgeball, and it still haunts me as a concept. Like, it was so stressful. And that was in 3-ball. Like, that's nothing. Nothing's going on. It was 3-ball in some little open at some point in the UK. It's not like it wasn't important. I can't imagine the amount of stress that you're under playing the Euros.
You don't even really get the chance to be stressed, do you? Like,
no, it's amazing.
Your adrenaline's like surely spiked at its highest level, and you can't even take into account what's happening. You're just literally right next throw.
And it's not something you really train ever because it's so infrequent that it happens. And it's interesting because it changes the way that you can play that game is completely different. You can't do trades, as it were.
Yeah, you can't. Well,
like,
that's
unless you're Decker.
Right? Like, if you're going to go for a trade, you have to be so sure that your ball is going to hit them first. Whereas normally in a situation, as long as you both release at the same time, fine. As long as you release before the ball hits you, it's fine. But in this situation, it's not fine. It really matters the order of hits. So that completely changes the setup of it. But that's not something you train. You don't train to see who hits first in a trade.
No, where I think Decker was really smart was that he knew he's going to have a quicker release than Alice. And he just played the aggressive game there with a pre-throw duck into it while going for the trade.
Which is exactly what Alice did too. Like, they both did the same move.
No, but he knew he'd be quicker at doing it.
Yeah.
That's where he just knew his release was going to be quicker. Ballsy move, but I really back it. I really back the thought process behind it in that split second. And I think Alice, as she's throwing as well, the ball goes over him too.
Yeah, I think she slightly skies it because I think she sees what's coming.
Exactly. But
he's trying to compensate for it, but. Yeah,
he essentially went for an aggressive free throw, right? But he done everything right there, and he didn't. And because he ducked down into it, he was like, right, there's a good chance that this is going to go over me. As she reacts to it, it was a very smart play, and I just want to give a huge shout out to Alice because to have been the one to take the hit in the sudden death, to then go on to play an integral part in the women's final straight afterwards was extremely impressive. Like, there's a lot of players out there that after that moment wouldn't have been able to pull it together to go into a final straight afterwards as well. So I do want to give a massive shout out to her because that was very impressive today.
Oh yeah, and the fact that they were even in the situation where they could have won it in the first place is down to Alice as well. Like those catches in the final set before overtime, there is a reason they got there, and it's heartbreaking that she was the one that got hit in the sudden death, but. That's less of a note on Alice and more of a point on Decker, which I think is probably been overlooked slightly is how impressive that decision making was from Decker.
Huge.
And I want to say it probably says something about the way that Austrians play, like, and how confident they are in their training in those situations, being more sort of like player for player, man on man. This is how we're gonna win this one, because he knows in that situation he's just got to get one hit. If it was like it was before, where if it was 2v2 and they've just got to win the set by one, I don't think he would have taken that risk, because if he'd have got hit and then it was a 1v1, then you're leaving it in a 1v1 scenario. And I think finding the right situation for him to then and Grill to pick on either Alice or Charlotte to get that 2v1 scenario is more the way that they would have played. But in an overtime set and sudden death to like notice that and know that's what they needed to do and how they could win it. Just massive credit to them and the way that Austria play.
Yeah, and another person I want to give a big shout out to was, again, Steve. During that entire game was incredible, especially in the early stages. Like, even so, for context, in the final, the Austrian coaches were mic'd up when I was coming through the stream, and I'm pretty sure every like team talk throughout it was like to get rid of Steve as soon as possible. Like, he was causing them so many problems. His throw-in was just perfect. Like, it was so good, and they were just having to try and look for any opportunity where Steve was a bit vulnerable. And that's it. Almost cost Austria being that like tunnel visioned on Steve at times, because he was surviving it. Like, he was just like, come at me. He was so confident. I haven't seen him play that well in so long. It was really nice. It was really good to see. Whenever Austria kind of went, right, we'll just wait for him to be, up court without a ball, or, try and catch you with 2 to 3 ball attacks. And that's whenever they started to come back into it, and stop being so tunnel visioned. But it made for such an exciting final. It's definitely a great watch.
Yeah, definitely. Closest final I've seen for a while. And it meant that it was the first final we watched. But it meant that every format, mixed women's and men's, had a different winner, which was insane. Like, it's the first time I think we've ever seen that. Yeah, mental, crazy.
Really good for the sport.
Yeah.
Not good for my predictions.
Yeah.
Treble again, please, to make it more predictable.
It's so funny because we were talking about in the predictions episode, like, we were saying how we saw England, or Zoe and I saw England winning one. We saw them winning one, and mixed was the thing that we thought they would see them in. We didn't see them doing it in men's. We didn't see them getting to the final, which we were correct. We didn't think they would do it in the women's. Sorry, what did you say, Zoe?
We did do the predictions without team sheets, to be fair.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But yeah, didn't necessarily see them predict doing it in the women's. And we thought, mix was where they're going to do it, and they were so close. They were so close. But yeah, fair play to Austria. Really, really impressive.
Well deserved. Very well deserved.
Very well deserved. But on to the overall mixed results, which were some mixed results. Hey.
Can we change it to co-ed? Is it too late?
I am not adopting Americanisms.
Says the guy that brought it up.
I was trying to say it so it would help other people who's listening. I'm not adopting it. There's a very big difference. There's facilitating, and then just changing.
It's the start. It's the start.
Yeah, that's what they all say. Slippery slope argument.
Exactly.
I just briefly touch on that fourth playoff. I know Northern Ireland had rotated a few players for the start of that match because they were preparing for their men's final, but they did have to bring out a lot of their main players to see off Spain and get that victory in the end, because Spain really we say Northern Ireland's second tier. It's not really a second tier. They're still really good. But Spain were very much going toe to toe them in the same way that Hungary women were going against England's seconds women's pretty well. Spain were really taking it to Northern Ireland and really making Northern Ireland work for it. But yeah, no, it was good to see.
It's a really interesting table. There's a lot of nations down there that I'm amazed that they got where they got, like that they didn't do any better. And then you look higher up, and it's such a fascinating muddled up table. That's good to see in a lot of ways. You want to see that. You want to see something unpredictable happen, and I think mixed definitely gave us unpredictability. I think that's the one thing that you can say about mixed this year.
Yep, love seeing Croatia there at 8th.
Right, like how
so
good,
crazy.
Yeah,
Croatia at 8th, Wales down in 13th, with Netherlands in 14th, and France in 12th. That's
Well, I mean, it's, even Switzerland being down in 15th, like the men did really well, the women did pretty well. Like, it's Serbia and Norway are new, and Belgium are still finding their feet, but yeah, like
pretty
that
well
is
timed.
one hell of a muddled up table.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, it's a good category.
I know Hungary as well. Like, I feel like they got through to that 9th, 10th playoff. Not an easy thing to do. Losing to Sweden in the end, but they did beat France to get there, which I can't be again underappreciated. How, like, I know there have been different discussions on Hungary and different takes on them, but I do genuinely think the steps that they've gone in general, the ability, the way that they've taken dodgeball so seriously, they are really training hard to get better, and you can see it in their attitude, is really great, and the results are starting to come through. That Hungary-France game was a really interesting one to watch. For a multitude of reasons, I would say go watch it and assess for yourself how you feel like it went. Because it was a really interesting game, like both tactically and ability-wise, on how certain players were playing. And I think, if I were to be brutally honest, Hungary deserved to win that game by more. That score shines kindly on France, in my opinion. Hungary were outstanding in that game and deserved a better result. Just a shame that they didn't have enough to beat Sweden in the end. But again, we know Sweden are a class outfit, so the fact that Sweden didn't get to go into the top 8, they really showed that they, if they hadn't been surprised by certain teams, probably deserved to be and really could have been up there in the table.
Hungary coming 10th is such a good sign for that country, because they've never entered a mixed team before, and even at a club level, like you mentioned before, like they do have clubs that compete internationally, but they don't send mixed teams to those events. So mixed dodgeball in Hungary is a very new concept, and it's still kind of finding its feet. And I think to have them do this well, to do better than their women's, I can't remember how their men did, but do this well in the tournament in mixed is a really good sign. And we've talked a lot about the sort of structure that you can have as a team that's developing, or a nation that's developing dodgeball, where you can really thrive in mixed in a way that takes a little bit more time to do in women's and men's. Hungary has the right setup for that. Like, Hungary has a handful of very good men and women in both their teams, and so that could create an incredibly good mixed team if they put the time in to train it and really develop that side of their game. I think that they were potentially let down by not training enough as a squad. I think occasionally you could see that they weren't playing that fluidly as men and women, but they were sort of split. The men were doing this, the women were doing that, instead of playing as mixed players. And I think that's something that, if they actually sort of sat down and recognized the weight of the achievement that they had this Euros in mixed, and how close it could have been, how they could have done really well, that's something that they could really focus on in future years, and it would be really good to see, and I think they could actually do very well in the format. So fair play to them.
Yeah, definitely. I think another note on Czechia. Okay, they came 5th. Yep, we established that. I think it's going to make for a fascinating CEC. Seeing how Italy have done, seeing how Czechia have been so consistently where they are, in fifth in all their groups, or all the divisions, and that's including having to deal with the likes of Northern Ireland, England, and Austria. Like, I think that in CEC is going to be really fascinating, because you've got Italy and Austria are going to be playing there as well. That those top spaces are going to be really, really hard for, and we know how Czechia did, or the Czechia men's team did in the Austrian National League as well. So it's definitely, I think that the CEC could be really interesting, and Switzerland also causing mayhem in the men's.
And very clearly in the women's as well.
Yeah. The regionals are going to be very interesting. I think CC is well established, and we kind of know the teams that are there. But I think it's going to be a very, very competitive CEC, and I think the NEC and WC are going to be slightly different. It's going to be some new teams trying out some new players. But yeah, I'm very curious to see how the first teams of each of the CEC do, because I know historically Austria's 1s and 2s have dominated it quite a lot. I don't think that would be the case anymore.
I don't think it'll be the case. I think it'll be really interesting as well, because it's the only regionals next year that's happening after World Champs. And my prediction now for World Champs, outside of like any nation, ratings or anything like that, is just that like a lot of players will probably retire after World Champs. It's a good opportunity to retire. It's a home, well, for the Austrian players, it's a home World Champs, but for Europeans in general, it's World Champs right here in Europe. So you might as well kind of take that opportunity. There's a lot of players who are kind of coming up to that age where they might retire this year, they might retire next year, they might retire in a year after that. And so it's whether or not you're holding out for Island Euros as your last competition, or whether you want to end on a World Champs. And I think that some players will do one, and some players will do the other. So you could very easily see CECs next year as the first rebuilding event for a lot of those nations that might have several outgoing players. In particular, Austria, I reckon, will have quite a lot of outgoing players because it's their home World Champs, and so CECs will be the first chance to really see the next generation of Austria coming through. And so that kind of combination of it's not necessarily a weaker Austria, but a very different Austria to what we've seen before, playing against a Czechia that's been growing from strength to strength, and Italy that's been growing from strength to strength, Switzerland as well. Like, that could really tighten the gap in between those nations, and it could create a really, really interesting CEC.
100%. Definitely. Yeah, and yeah, obviously, Croatia and that Spain. I think if I was a newspaper writer, which I'm not because I can't write shit, if I was to write a headline, it would definitely be highlighting Spain and Croatia just stunning everyone with how well they played, and how well organised they are, and from my perspective, I just really like how quickly these teams have fully taken on board and dedicated themselves to the sport on what they need to do to become better. Not just how do we set ourselves up to grow, or set up a league. It's like no, how do we go to Euros and be damn competitive? And I absolutely love that. I love that, the mentality, and I love to see it. Obviously, really important to see that the nation grows in dodgeball outside of just Euros, because to be sustainable, you need that many new players coming in, and you need those pathways. But just seeing them coming in and really, showing off their capabilities as a nation, cannot wait to see what happens in the future for those teams, and what the mixed tables look like going forward. Because I think it is a real wake up call that mixed is a genuinely competitive league and division.
Well said.
Cool. Right. I think that's it.
Let's wrap it up.
I think we're all Eurosed out. We've done 4 episodes now. It's been a long time, and thank you for being patient and waiting till December for us to review something that happened in October.
Thanks for listening as well.
And watching that absolute disgrace of a graphic that had everything wrong on it. I'll try and do better, but I won't make any promises. Because anyone who watches the social media knows that I get a lot of things wrong. But yeah, anyway, you've got content. Be appreciative by liking and subscribing. Leave a comment. Let us know what you're enjoying, what you're looking forward to in 2024, because that's just around the corner. More dodgeball to come. For the home nations, we will be covering the English National League for men's and women's. Not quite sure how we're going to do the regionals, but we'll figure it out and we'll let you know. But watch this space because more content coming soon. See you guys in the next one. Or go watch the other Euros podcast.
Do it.